Patricia Van Haren, family law attorney. How do separate property assets come into play when looking at spousal support? Well, the first defense against a long-term spousal support award is that the requesting party does not need support because his or her estate after the judgment is sufficient to meet their needs and enable them to be self-supporting. There are several cases which deal with how a spouse's separate property eliminates any support entitlement. Courts have determined that when assessing whether or not a spouse's separate property was sufficient to meet their needs and eliminate a support order, they should consider the principal of that estate, not just the interest or other income that's earned from those assets. The courts will also look to the supported spouse's share of the community estate and determine whether that spouse can be supported from their share of the assets that they are receiving in the divorce settlement. In cases where a party doesn't work and they're living off their assets, the courts may look at the income that is generated by those assets and use those to determine the marital standard of living and may base support off the separate property assets. This is also used in matters where one of the spouses leaves their employment and chooses to remain unemployed. Family law courts are a court of equity. Therefore, they will look at the assets in determining the ability to pay support as well as the need for support. We had a case where the wife became unemployed during the divorce process. Our client was employed, and during the marriage, both parties had the same income. Child custody was joint custody. And when the community estate was divided, each party had significant assets. The wife was also receiving income support based on losing his job. The courts found that there were enough assets that he would be able to sell off some of these properties and cash out some of his accounts in order to continue to pay under the current support order. The wife continued to be employed, but her earnings from income were significantly less than the earnings of the husband during the marriage and after the date of separation. Therefore, at the time of this trial, the court determined she was entitled to support. As the husband wasn't actively seeking employment, the court found he continued to have the ability to pay support and did not modify the court orders. Every case is different and unique, so it's important to look at the facts of your own case. If you have any questions about the impact of your assets on spousal support, shoot us over an email or give us a call.